This is the Sony a7 III. Sony's full-frame mirrorless camera that rocked the world in 2018. Yes, a camera that is 2 years old, and yet I, someone who has only shot Micro Four Thirds, decided to pick this thing up in 2020. In spite of Canon announcing several full-frame options coming down the pipes headed our way, why was it that in 2020 I decided to buy this camera instead of waiting for the Canons? Well, let's chat about it. Yo guys, what is going on? Jake Felzine here, back with another video, boring video, talking heads video, but I've been getting some questions and I thought I would just kind of clear the air. I wanted to talk through why I bought, in particular, the Sony a7 III in comparison to waiting for the new Canon cameras to come out. Canon has announced two new, well, I can't remember what's rumored and what's not. They for sure announced one, the R5, the camera that we're all like super amazed on. And then I think I can't remember if they've officially announced the R6 or not, but anyway, full frame mirrorless cameras that seem to have a lot of juice behind them are coming out from Canon this year. So why did I go with the a7 III instead of just wait for these cameras? As a total camera nut, it seems like it would make sense that I would potentially wait for something like this. Here's the thing, I kind of hedged my bets a little bit. I knew that I wanted to get a full frame camera for reasons that I explained in a previous video, but I knew I wanted a full frame camera, but I just wasn't sure how much I wanted to spend. I think this year there's three main scenarios that will come from Canon's new cameras and them being released. We're going to talk through each three of them, and I think unless it's kind of my first unicorn scenario, there's really no way that Canon would be able to convince me to buy their new cameras over this old camera based off of just how much I'm loving this one and all of the features that I'm getting from it, despite a lot of the things that people have problems with it with. So far, this camera has been awesome for me. So let's dive into those three different situations. Canon is going to come out with cameras this year in 2020. What are the three situations that I envision? Again, this is all hypothetical. My personal take on the situation could be totally off, could be way off, but it's just what I think is going to happen. Situation number one, Canon comes out with the new EOS R5. It shoots all of the amazing frame rates for photos. It shoots 8K video, full frame, no crop at 24 frames per second, has autofocus, 4K 60, full frame, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. All of our specs are met, and the camera body itself is right around, I don't know, 2,500 bucks. We'll just say sub 3,000 bucks to be ultra generous. This is scenario number one, and it is by far the unicorn scenario. Should this scenario happen, somewhere down the future, I want all of you to come back to this video, get out your keyboard warriors and say, Jake, you were totally wrong, you were way off. Canon, this was their year and they just totally crushed it, and you basically get to put your foot in your mouth. I will gladly accept that. If Canon comes out with that camera, yes, I will be sad, because it will be at a price point that I would have considered, and it will have amazing specs, and of course all of the good Canon colors and just Canon look, but I just don't think that this situation is going to happen. Hedging my bets, it felt like it just wasn't going to happen. So let's talk about scenario 2 and scenario 3, which are the scenarios that I think are more likely. Scenario number 2, Canon comes out with the camera that they've promised. It has all of the amazing specs. It blows us completely out of the water. It makes Sony and Nikon look like absolute crap and just spanks them. Sends them home and says, Sony and Nikon, we don't even care about your full frame mirrorless options. We crushed it, and here's that camera. The R5 just has everything we've ever hoped and dreamed for, and it is the perfect camera. But knowing Canon, knowing the cripple hammer, they come in and that camera is very expensive. I think this is possible. I think it is possible that Canon hits it out of the park. This is their year. They crush it on specs. It's the camera that everyone wants, everyone dreams of, but at the same time, I do have a fear that it could be at least $6,000. The new 1DX Mark III, which kind of is being teased with similar specs, or they're kind of looking like they're gonna be similarly spec'd. That camera's launching at like, I don't know, what is it? I think it's like 6,500 bucks. So a smaller version of that with even better features, I have a really hard time imagining that it's going to be under $3,000. So that's scenario number 2. Specs are awesome, but the price is ridiculous. And let's talk about scenario number 3. The specs are lackluster. All of the specs have been marketing BS. 8K video is like just kind of a time-lapse feature, and basically Canon just comes out with some really solid cameras that put them in the runnings with Sony and with Nikon, but you know, maybe they're not anything to, you know, run home to. And you know, I'm sure that they will be better, but let's just say that for scenario 3, the specs are somewhat on par with the competition, where the EOS R was widely considered to be far behind the competition, even though that is still a really awesome camera. So in scenario 3, let's just say hypothetically that the pricing is more reasonable. Now, knowing Canon, I could see a situation where this is a more reasonably priced camera, and you might still be able to come back and say, Jake, we told you so, but I still don't imagine in scenario 3 that this camera is cheaper than the Sony. I was able to get the Sony a7iii and the Tamron 28-75, which is a 2.8 lens, all the way through a absolutely beautiful lens for photos and for videos. Both of those, and I think I got an ND filter, was under $3,000. So even if Canon does come out with this kind of more reasonable camera, I still think that it's going to be over $3,000 just because of the way that they like to price their cameras. I have a hard time imagining that it'll be sub $3,000, but who knows? So guys, those are the 3 Canon scenarios that I think will happen in 2020. Again, I hope that Canon just comes out and just floors it. They've been the snooze fest for forever, and even though we all love all of the stuff that they do, they haven't really pushed the envelope, and it seems like they're such a big company with so much technology. It seems like they really could push it just like Sony did 2 years ago when they came out with the a7 III, which is a camera that absolutely still crushes it in 2020, and it's never been at a better price. So we'll see what happens. What do you guys think? Do you think Canon is going to blow it out of the water? Even if they do, which I hope that they do, I still think it's going to cost a pretty penny to pick up these new cameras, but we'll just have to wait and see. Until then, I'm loving the a7 III. I would highly recommend it to a lot of people in 2020 if they're looking to get into the full frame space and do it on a much more budget-friendly option. Other than one overheating fiasco with my first shoot with this camera, updating the firmware, fixing that setting, I haven't had an issue since, and I would definitely recommend this camera. That's all I've got for you guys tonight, just going over to kind of clear the air on why I didn't wait for the Canon cameras. Hope you guys like this video. There will be more of these types of videos coming out about the Sony as I learn more about it, and why I really think this is a killer camera in 2020. But you guys have a good rest of your night. I'm gonna go edit this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.